Hello and welcome to the Roll and Reflect podcast, the podcast where we bring you insights from behind the tabletop and beyond the box. I'm one of your hosts, Devon.
And I'm Mark.
And today we are talking about small boxes, but big adventures, and we are discussing Allplay and a trio of Allplay games. Mark, what do you think about Allplay?
You know, they're one of the Dice Tower sponsors, and they make some amazing presentation of these little games, you know. And even at conventions, their booth is just so cool. And how the dispenser for those games, it's really well done. So, yeah. But, you know, we'll talk about it more, but they used to be board game tables until they moved into doing games and stuff. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and we have some behind-the-scenes information as well on how those shelves were kind of made. I talked a little bit with Joe, so I have some information about that.
That's awesome.
Before we get into the content, we have a reflection question for you to answer in the comments below. Our reflection question today is from Laura of Purple Phoenix Games. Laura, take it away.
Hey, Devon and Mark. Laura here from Purple Phoenix Games. The board game content creation industry has really taken off in the last few years. Do you feel like it's gotten oversaturated at all? And what can groups do to really stand out?
Okay, so this one's a very, kind of a divisive topic because everyone has their own opinion on it. And for me, I do feel like the market has been oversaturated. When I began creating content, it was kind of like not as saturated. And then as I was going, I started seeing all these creators just posting videos and reviews and all this stuff. And most of them don't actually end up like continuing in posting, but it felt just kind of bad to post in a market that was just flooded with stuff. However, that's also a good thing and a bad thing. So the bad thing for me is that, of course, there's too much out there, right? Like there's not enough good value. But then the good thing is there's a creator for everyone. Yes. So it's like someone who likes my videos is not going to necessarily like Mark's videos.
Right.
So I think it really goes hand in hand, because like I said here, more content equals more reach equals more players equals more games, rinse, repeat. That's what we're here for. So it's interesting. And then in terms of how can they stand out? Because that is the big question, right? Like, how do you stand out? Well, for me, I think you just need to be integrated and active in more of the online communities.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the creators just post and they expect the community to go to them. Well, that's not necessarily how it works. Like, you need to be integrated and go work with people at conventions and network and do all this stuff, collaborate with other creators. When you do that, you're going to start getting content and viewers coming back to you. And so I think really collaboration with other creators is something that is underrated and hasn't been done enough. So I think, that's a big deal. And I think that's my thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, you hit a lot of the great points. For me, it's all about, I've been doing this for over 10 years now. So it's interesting to see where it came from, where it's going and so forth. And there are folks that come in and out, drop out and such. But I like what you said. It's like, you have your favorite channel for TV or favorite network or whatever. So here you have your favorite creator and you just go watch them. And that's why campaigns and different games do all various types of live plays and different previews and all kinds of different things because folks like to turn into their favorites. And it really boils down to that. So, and also the whole, I love collaborating. So I wish folks would do that more. I would love to do even more and more of that. So it's something that I enjoy, cross-channel, jumping in and out. It was something I did early on, a lot of, but it's just not something that's being done a whole bunch now, but I would love to do more. And, some of my favorite obviously was working with Becca, Good Time Society and doing stuff like it with her. And then, even just some of the publishers going out to their location and doing stuff with them. That just some really neat things. So like you said, networking is really the key thing, not just at conventions, which is obviously a key thing, but also, going into live streams and doing live events, all kinds of things like that help bolster the community. And obviously you're fantastic with running like social media channels and so forth. So anymore, I'm so busy that I don't get to jump into social media channels as much as I used to, but I do appreciate those who do so. So yeah, I mean, I'm all for more folks, and I love to go check out some of the up and coming folks and see what they're doing, what kind of new things they're trying. I love that. It's really cool. So
yeah, and I think we just released an episode with Austin of Ivy Studios, and I think Ivy's a very good example of how to integrate with the community. And with their content creators, they have people all over come together in their studio to create content. And then each of those people have their own videos and stuff sometimes. So I think that is a really good thing to be doing. And I think more content creators need to be doing that instead of just relying on just them posting a video and then going out to the wind. Because especially in a market like this, it's not going to work long term. You know, it might work short term. We want long term visions.
Man, it's and just such a great question. Thank you for that. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Laura. So, core of our content today is Allplay and some tiny games that Allplay does. So, before you had mentioned they used to be boardgametables.com, and I always find that hilarious because it's like, oh, what's this company? Well, it is boardgametables.com. What do they make? Board game tables. Right? And over time, they grew and grew, and their tables are fantastic. I really enjoy their tables. But then they grew and realized the market was there for board games. And they started releasing some games, and now they are honestly switching more into the games because games are more profitable long term than just the tables. Because you think about you buy one table for 10 years or something.
Exactly.
Now you buy games all the time. So,
and one thing I'm going to point out that I say this about every, not just them, but every board game table. Why do you not market to Lego people? It's the perfect Lego table as well, not just board gaming.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good point because it's not just board games, but like I really like the tables that give you a little bit of an indent. I don't like the tables that are really thick and super thick indents because then I'm like reaching into it. But
yeah, I have a little bit of that with our table upstairs. But the thing is that I like being able to leave a game set up though.
That's true.
Put the top back on.
So
there's real trade-offs between shallow versus, I like the shallow for my studio, but yeah, it's an interesting mix how and where you would use those, right?
Now they rebranded recently, I think within a few years, 3 years, something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
They rebranded into Allplay, and now they make board game tables, shelving units, bags, accessories, and board games. So a little bit of everything. Honestly, extremely high quality all around. I personally really love their games. They're one of my favorite companies. Their bags are super helpful, unless you're at a convention and then you get ran into by those bags.
That's so very true. That happens a lot, especially like at a Gen Con.
Yeah, and I was just recently at Geekway. I was working there, and all of a sudden people were I was trying to sell games, and then I would just get hit with these bags. And I'm just like, okay, these bags are amazing, but maybe put them away and try a smaller bag if you can, whatever.
And you've worked their booth, so tell us about the shelving.
The shelving was really fascinating because they've made it super easy for them just to boom, drop everything and go. Their setup time has reduced like an insane amount because they've pre-built shelving so that all they need to do is roll it off of their truck right into the vendor hall, because everything is, if you see an Allplay booth, you know what we're talking about. But and what it is essentially every little game has their own indent in the shelving unit.
It's like Pez dispensers.
Yeah, that's a good example. It's like a Pez dispenser. And, you think about like gas stations where they have sodas lined up. That's what it is. It's you pull a game and then they move forward. So it's super genius. And over time, they're going to adapt with new box sizes and stuff like that. We'll talk about.
Obviously, it really fits this small box size really well to do that.
They start building shelving units for others now as well. And something that I thought was really cool, I'm jumping ahead of myself a little bit, but they did a really cool community event that this was kind of the first soiree into, Allplay. We are Allplay, right? They did the complete home game room makeover.
Yeah.
That was so cool. And I didn't know
so cool. Yeah.
I didn't know much about Allplay or the company or the team at this point. And so I went in watching this, and I was always a fan of Extreme Home Makeover. So I was like, okay, I see what you're doing here, Allplay.
Yeah.
And then I watched it and I was like, this is really cool. Like, what a cool event they did. I kind of, my respect kind of grew for the company as a whole after that video. So
cool.
Did you see their office, Mark?
No, I have not. No.
Their office is in the side of a mountain.
Oh, that's awesome.
They call it like their secret hideout. And, I'll show a picture because they just posted a bunch of pictures, and you literally walk in and there's like mountain inside of their office, and it's a warehouse, and it looks like a secret like bat cave or something.
That's awesome.
Except
I love
it's bright and not dark. And I thought that was super cool. They're actually not super far away from me, so I need to go travel down there and,
yeah, you
and
do.
hang out. But I know they just announced actually a new tiny box size.
Oh, really?
And
I didn't see that either.
So if you're on YouTube, you can check this out. So this is their normal, small box, right? What they just announced, Joe was telling me that they have now almost like a poker size. So it's like half of this, but like a little bit underneath that.
Gotcha.
And so they're doing poker sized games as well. Not just cards, but like really small boxes. And so I think that's going to be good for impulse purchases. It's one of those where they're already known for having small box games with big adventures. So now they have even smaller games with a lot of thinking. And that'll be really good for them. I think their sales will boost even more with those small games. So
yeah.
Do you like to take their games with you? Portable?
Oh yeah, they're super portable. That's what I like. And what's funny about this episode is that when you brought it up, those are the 3 games that I own. I was like,
oh really?
Yeah, I already own those 3.
Well, that's cool. We're going to be talking about Chomp, Mountain Goats, and Sequoia. And there's so many more, but these are the first 3 that I wanted to talk about. I love those.
I just thought it was interesting that you actually pegged the 3 that were my chosen games.
Yeah, before we talk about that, I do want to hit on one final thing with them.
Yeah.
So what's really cool about what they're doing now recently as a company is they are partnering with publishers for e-commerce. So that is something that on the indie design side is really awesome to know about because they're going to help handle customer service, shipping, all of that kind of stuff. That's kind of a nightmare and a pain for us smaller creators. I know Bitewing is one of their main customers or whatever right now they use for that. Clients. Kinson Key will be using them. I just heard about that. So it's going to be really cool to be able to see like how they handle the fulfillment. And again, talking with Joe, they have a really streamlined system of how things are working there. So I'm excited to see the future of where they go and where they help a lot of these creators.
Yeah, nice.
So let's talk about trio of small box games. Which one do you want to start with?
Well, let's see. It's hard. It's a hard choice for me because it's either Chomp or Mountain Goats are my favorite.
Okay, we're going to do Mountain Goats first then.
All right, let's do Mountain Goats.
So Mountain Goats, do you want to describe some story and then how it works?
Yeah, I wish there was more story. Literally, you are climbing a mountain with your goats. And there is a little bit of set collection because you get the points across the top and you get bonus points for doing so. So I wish there was more theme. Because Chomp has some good theme to it.
Very much so. No, I agree. A lot of these games, I mean, there's only so much you can do with the theme and these small games.
Yeah.
So I think they did what they could with it.
Of course. Yeah.
But do you want to describe the gameplay?
Yeah, so literally everyone has their own goats at the bottom of each of the mountains, and you're going to be chucking dice, which is one of the things that drew me to the game, obviously. And how you put your dice together and which goats you move up the track to the top to get those points is key. And there's a stack of points at the top of every mountain, and you get to grab whatever's the latest, greatest point value at the top. You grab that. And then if anyone comes up behind you to that top of the mountain, then it bumps you back down and you can continue to move up the track again. So that's the whole game right there. And that's one of the beauty thing about all these games. You literally can learn to play in 1 minute.
Yeah, it's for sure 1 minute. I've taught this in 1 minute. I taught this in 30 seconds because a lot of the times when we were teaching is just like, let's just play it. Let's roll and see how it works.
That's what's beauty about these. Now, Chomp is a little bit different. It's not quite as straightforward as Sequoia and Mountain Goats, and Mountain Goats and Sequoia have a kind of a same-ish kind of play. You're rolling dice and combining values to do things. So
they feel similar. They have different mechanisms, but they do feel similar. This is one of those games where, again, all of the artwork is great. We're going to touch on that briefly just because it's all so good for these games. Yep. But one thing with Mountain Goats, I have found that, so this is a little bit of a downside of this game I've noticed.
Tell me.
I have found that it breaks really easily. So I've played it at 2, especially at 2, it breaks really easily.
Yeah, I don't like to play. These are definitely not, for me, these are definitely not 2-player games.
Yeah, because as soon as one person gets to the mountain, they can continue rolling that and just get that over and over and over. Yeah. So I've had games where I've just been blown out of the water, or I have blown someone else out of the water because I'm just getting lucky and rolling the same number over and over.
Mountain Goats specifically is my favorite is at max player count.
Yeah, so it's one of those really good family games, though. A lot of these are super well done at family. And I wouldn't necessarily recommend Chomp as much as I would Mountain Goats for family weight.
there's definitely more game in Chomp for sure. The thing about Mountain Goats though is that I can pull it out and bring it to like family gatherings, people who don't play games easily, because like aunts and uncles, they're used to like Yahtzee or something like that, and so this isn't that far of a removed stretch from them. The set collection thing about the different values of mountains is a little bit foreign to them, but it's pretty straightforward when they get going. So
it's a good little gateway, though. I think
it is.
It's especially a good gateway into the Allplay system because this is one of the simpler games. Sequoia is even simpler than this.
Even more simple, yeah.
But yeah, I really love this. I taught this a bunch when I was there working for them, and families, kids loved it. We had kids that were playing like 6 years old or something, and they were totally understanding what was happening. So that is Mountain Goats.
Yeah,
I was gonna chuck it over my shoulder.
Sequoia next. Why don't you tell us how to play Sequoia? Because since they're so similar,
Sequoia. As you probably know, if you've heard this podcast before, I am a huge nature person. My wife and I love going out into nature. We love hiking and biking and doing all of those things. Sequoia puts us in the forest. I'm more of a beach guy myself, but my wife loves the forest.
Oh, interesting. I did not know this. I'm definitely more of a mountain forest guy.
Okay. Well, I wear these shirts every day. Come on. I look like a beach person. But no, Sequoia is one of those, again, super, like this is even more light than Mountain Goats. What you're going to be doing is you're placing these numbered tiles around in a circle as opposed to a row like in Mountain Goats. And you're going to be rolling some dice, making pairs. And those pairs, all it is you have to add the total value of the pairs to put your little, what is it, tree stump or something like that?
Your little tree. So your tree is growing, basically.
Your tree, yeah, that's the theme. You're growing a tree. So you roll the dice, match a pair, total value, you put your tree stump on that card. So if it's a 3 plus 2 is 5, you put your thing on the 5. And that's all you do. Everyone does that once. You keep doing that until all of the tokens are out, and then you score based on area majority.
Right.
And so whoever has the most tree stumps on this wins and gets the big score, and then the second place gets the smaller score.
I always felt like the second score, it's like 1 point, right? So it's like it's like such a slap in the face. You didn't get the big one.
It's like 4 and then 1. Well, great. It's like a participation trophy almost.
It's like a participation award.
Honestly, I love area control games. So that's why I was leaning towards this one.
Okay.
Because I love this area control. It's so small. Like it is you have to have more than the others. Again, this is for families, but even more so than Mountain Goats.
Even more so. Yeah, definitely. Because it's even more straightforward than Mountain Goats. The thing for me with Mountain Goats in comparison is that I love the race feel. And, Sequoia, obviously you're racing to grow your trees, but it doesn't feel like a race in the same way that Mountain Goats does. And I love that the whole like bumping off the top and starting over. And
the interaction bit.
Interaction there. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think for this too, there is a downside. I have a downside with each of these games. With Sequoia, the downside is very much, for me, it's the tiebreaker system.
Yeah,
there was weird. Really bad tie-breaking system.
I feel like a house rule for that one might be needed.
And we actually do. I designed a house rule that I think works. It's a little more annoying because what I do is like when you're down to the final ties, whatever, you keep rolling until you get to that tile. And then if you place a tile, you get it first. So there is a little race element with the tie.
That's cool.
It's interesting. It's competitive, but it's extremely light competitive.
Yeah.
So if your family likes to compete, but also doesn't want to use their brain like heavily, I think Sequoia is a good one for you. What's Chomp all about?
Chomp is, oh man. So first and foremost, dinosaurs is one of my favorite things in board games. I will pretty much always buy a dinosaur game. But this one, you're trying to match your playfield with carnivores and herbivores and have beware of like tar pits, but there may be objective cards that you have in hand that help you out and give you points for tar pits and things. So it's just really how the dinosaurs are gathering, let's say, in your world, and how you can gain points from them based on your objectives that you've pulled. You draw these objectives, there's 3 piles of them, and the ones that aren't drawn are then flipped and moved down into the scenery, and they're in that quadrant type card. So the thing I love about this game is that it's super puzzly. I love that aspect and how you combine the tiles together to make the ultimate group of either herbivores or have your environments next to the right place to the right dinosaur to get you the most points and so forth. So I like that aspect quite a bit and how you place things. So it is definitely more thinky for sure than the other two. And because it's dinosaur, of course, I had to go all in and get all the upgraded components.
Oh, the upgraded bits are so worth it.
Are so cool, right? With the skeletons of the carnivores, and then you've got all the flying ones and the eggs, and just so cool. So yeah, there's also eggs that you can place into nests for points. But again, it really comes down to your objective cards and how you best use those. So,
what I love about this game is it does have the point salad feel. Like you said, with the
very much
the three cards. And what's really cool about it is there is subtle amount of take that. Because again, I play 2-player quite a lot. So in the 2-player game,
this one works well at 2-player.
It works super well at 2. Yep. So if you see this card, you're like, okay, well, I really don't need that, but I want that. I don't want my opponent to get that scoring objective up top. Well, I take this card to flip the scoring objective. I think that's fascinating. It's a genius mechanism. And
it's a very slight take that.
Yeah.
Because it comes down to just the draw and what cards you pull and so forth. But it's not like a direct draw 4 more cards or something like that.
Exactly. So yeah, essentially like the theme of this is extinction's around the corner and you are trying to find sources of food to survive. And
all the dinosaurs are trying to find sources. It's not just the carnivores, right? So
yeah.
Carnivores are going to have the herbivores are looking for the plants, and you have to be aware of tar pits, and there's all kinds of different ways that you can puzzle out the different groups. You've got small dinosaurs, large dinosaurs. I love it. It's right up my alley for a puzzly game that has the theme that appeals to me like greatly.
Yeah. And I know you're a huge multiplayer fan. That's kind of like what you do. I have actually played this solo a couple times.
I have not played it solo.
If you like, you like puzzles.
Sure.
This is a very good solo puzzle.
Okay.
It's so simple, and I can't exactly remember how the card play works, but I know like if you select one of the scoring tiles or whatever, the one to the left or right gets removed, and then they flip another one over.
Okay, so kind of like take that on yourself.
Yeah. And it's just a puzzle, like you would think normally, but I think this is actually how I learned the game is just by playing it solo, and then I taught my wife the next day.
Okay.
And I really enjoyed it. I played it 3 times that same night. And it was just fascinating. And being able to cover up certain things, but that decision point of what to cover up when, like the tar pits and the eggs.
Like 3 cards later, you're like, oh, I shouldn't.
Right. And once you place it, you can't move it.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's a very interesting game. It says 20 minutes to play. I do think it does take a little longer if you have those players that are really thinky.
Well, yeah, because there's a lot of you're turning your tiles, trying to find exactly the right placement. There's some AP there for sure.
Yeah, and I know a couple of my friends are really AP. So it's like we're playing with them, and even the game this small can feel like a medium weight game.
Oh, definitely. And just folks who are not used to like puzzling things together too, like first timers for this game, are it's a little slower to play then as well. But I feel like everyone I've taught it to and shown it to has really enjoyed it and just jumps in. And of the 3, I don't really have a downside for this one. Like you're saying, you have a downside in all of them. So I'm really interested to hear what you think is a downside for this one.
I think really the downside in this one is it's very small, but it has that calico effect. Like you had mentioned, you can very much screw yourself over in 4 turns without knowing.
That can happen. But I feel like those moments are like, oh, next time on
It's very much one of the other 2 have clear downsides. This one's like a gameplay downside on yourself almost. So it's not really like a universal downside.
Sure.
And to be totally honest, Chomp is my favorite of all of them. So
by far. I tell you, the Mountain Goats is a close second for me just because of the dice chucking and that emergency, but you feel that anxious to get up the mountain,
to get up the mountain.
I like that tension that it provides, and Chomp doesn't really have that tension. They're really close, but I like that they're vastly different games. So
very much so. Yeah, for me, it's Chomp and then Sequoia and then Mountain Goats.
Okay. Yeah, Sequoia is definitely a low third for me. Maybe if I had another game, it might even be 4th.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, of all of the Allplay games that I have played, Through the Desert is my number 1.
Nice.
And then it's Chomp. So
and then it's Chomp. Okay.
But then there's a lot I haven't actually played yet. So
Yeah,
I'm sure there's others
same.
that are better.
Yeah, I mean, I'm usually playing prototypes, so I'm not
Right.
playing. Through the Desert, I've heard all good stuff, but Chomp is definitely my go-to small box. A lot of times I just have it in my bag or in my car or something. So
Yeah, and I think overall that's why I love these games that they're creating. Like
Yeah.
even the bigger boxes are small enough to put in bags, on a
Sure.
plane if you want.
Yep.
We go hike, we go camping and stuff. So I usually have a board game bag, like a small bag, and I tuck all of these games because you don't need the box necessarily.
No.
Like if you have all the things in it, you
Yep.
just put them in
Just
bags.
tags.
And I actually really, with the Chomp, there is a Predators expansion, Predators
Oh
and
yeah,
Flyers.
I haven't tried that.
That is also another way to add extra scoring. So
Now I must get it.
yeah, so the expansion, obviously the cute screen printed meeples are cool and stuff. But all it is you get additional cards. Like you get one card that's like a private objective. It shows an image of a layout. So like let's say a tar pit meat.
Okay,
red.
cool.
If you have exactly that in your tableau at
Nice,
the end
I
of the
like
game,
that.
you score the points.
Okay, cool.
And so that's literally it. That's the expansion, but it just gives another way to score extra points.
Yeah, I like that a lot actually.
It's worth it. It's a small inclusion. I wouldn't necessarily play it every time, but
Sure.
it's a good inclusion.
I feel like I would play it every time.
You would probably play it. Yeah. With the people I'm playing with, I wouldn't play it every
Yeah, okay.
time. But anything else to talk about with those 3 games there, Mark?
Let's talk about the artwork real quick because I feel what I love about at least these 3, and probably in general for their games as well, is that they are very different artwork, but they feel the same.
Right.
Right.
The same style.
Same style, which is so cool. And I love this kind of like this watery color, like it just looks so good on
It's
the
very
table.
vibrant on the shelf.
Vibrant.
Too.
Yeah, I love the color choices and just so well done. And even from like, Chomp being a more recent game to these others that are a little bit older, it's still, that style is still there. They did such a good job with that.
They did a good job of creating motion in the artwork.
Yeah.
I think because
love
each
that.
one of them is like, it looks like they're moving, and like in the box, you can tell like with how they do the accent marks, especially on the dinosaur here in Chomp. It just shows you like he's moving around
I know, it's
the
so
world.
cool.
So the artwork is by Daniel Proferi and Anka Gavriel.
Yep.
And I believe they are like pretty much the artists for a lot of their games there at Allplay.
Yeah, I think so.
So I know they're branching out a little bit now, but they're like one of the most prolific in the Allplay line. So
I just love the style of it for sure. Yeah. Absolutely gorgeous.
Awesome. Well, those were 3, a trio of Allplay games, amazing small box games that I think we would recommend you go out
definitely.
and check out at least, if not purchase. I think that's going to conclude the meat of our content, but we have the Beyond. This is where we're talking about something outside of the board game industry sometimes, or something we're really excited about. So
yeah, and this one for me is in the board game industry again. So I got to do something recently with IV Studio for their new game Brink, where I got to do a brand new type of preview, and I'm just on the fly came up with, it's now the pocket preview. So literally like 3 minutes or less is kind of the target, and maybe a little bit more thematic. And like I'm sitting on a green screen with the game board behind me, and it's just more dynamic, faster paced, bam, bam, bam. And it's generally all scripted. I do a quick thoughts at the end. It just has that quick flow to kind of put that more of a commercial aspect out there, which again has that kind of movie trailer vibe, which I love to do.
Yeah.
So I'm going to tell folks, see if anybody else wants to jump in and do these. Ivy was the first and took a chance, and they actually pushed me in this direction to do something different. So I'm like, sure, let's give it a try. So we'll see how it pans out. And it was a lot of fun. So it actually ended up being more work than a normal preview.
Oh, really?
Because just scaling everything down to that amount of time and then getting the right footage. And Ivy helped me with this one. Usually I'll shoot it myself. We're trying to match what they're doing quality wise and so forth. So I took a lot of their footage and put over it. However, I did a lot of the graphics and things behind me and so forth. So it definitely gives the same vibe as what they're giving off from their videos. And that was kind of the goal, right? So they have another commercial piece to use.
That's awesome.
But I loved doing it. It was just so much fun. And it was just was more fun than I thought. It was kind of like, I don't know, we'll see how it goes. But then I loved it, and I hope I get to do more of these. So
yeah, I actually ended up watching it when you sent it over to me, and I was like, okay, well, I'm surprised you actually haven't done that before, honestly, because like our attention span is so small,
short these days.
So
right?
3 minutes or less is like about what you can get people.
Yeah,
and even that sometimes is too much.
it's sometimes a little long, right?
In the world of TikTok,
In the world of TikTok. But now TikTok videos can be like 10 minutes or something.
Yeah,
ridiculous.
it's kind of crazy. They're like going back and forth with it. But no, it was really good. I think a lot more companies should look into those pocket previews because
I think it's really cool because then we can actually put stuff in the script that they want to cover instead of me just rambling, because generally my previews are like me scripting the front of it with the theme and story. And then it's like, hey, I played a game last night. I'm just going to tell you about all the things. Look at this. Oh, look at that. You know,
squirrel,
exactly.
Yeah, very much. Sometimes like as creators, we like to ramble.
It was an interesting exercise to like confine myself down to a certain time limit and do something, again, very different. And that's also made it fresh and fun because it is different. And I just feel like I have another thing I can tap into for folks who want to do.
So those are, pocket previews with Mark. And if someone wants to get a pocket preview, what do they need to do?
Oh, just reach out, mark@dicetower.com, and I'll put you in touch with our marketing people and we'll go from there. So
awesome. Got to get the plug in there. Come on, Mark.
Yeah, definitely.
You always have to have the plug in there somewhere.
Always.
Speaking of the plug, I'm going to do my shameless plug here.
Yes,
for my
let's hear it.
Beyond. I recently finished the first draft rulebook of our first game, Montoons Clash of the Coral Isles. It is a print and play, roll and write arena battler game.
Yeah, I can't wait to play this weekend. We're playing. So
yes, I'm so excited. It's a 2 to 4 players, no solo mode, so stop asking. But I put together the rulebook, and as a designer, I know how crucial blind playtesting is. And people are wondering, they're asking, what does blind playtesting mean? And I keep assuming that people know, but that's a bad thing. I need to stop assuming. So what blind playtesting means is essentially these people don't know who you are necessarily. If you're the designer, you just send them a rulebook. They play the game based on your rulebook. And if they can't play the game, well, the rulebook needs fixed.
Help. Yes.
Because if like when they're purchasing a game, they're not going to have you there to hold your hand, right? So they need to play the game from that rulebook. And so I sent out, I think, over 55 different links to people who wanted to play test. I'm hoping to get some great feedback. I already got some really good feedback from that, and I've changed the rules already. So you have the most updated rulebook. Hopefully that is good for you when you check it out.
That's good.
But it's such an interesting concept, and I'm very confident that this game is unique in the print and play space. We just had a quote come in that says it's a refreshing take on a saturated market in the roll and write.
For me, I love the artwork. The creatures are so cool.
Yeah, we've worked really closely with our artists for this.
You know, it drew me in immediately. I'm like, ooh, I want to play that.
Yeah, so that's really cool. If you're a game designer out there listening, I highly recommend writing up a draft and then checking it 3-4 times yourself. And then once you get that first draft, start sending it out to people. Like, no matter what you think, they're going to help you out way more than you are because you know the game. You're blinded a little bit because you've just been playing it. You've been teaching it.
Yeah.
So
that
help
happens
them.
a lot. And also, if you can include just a handful of pictures that relate to things, that would be huge because I get a lot of rule books. And this is one of my favorite examples. Now take the Doom token. I'm like, I have 30 tokens. Which one is it?
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that because literally yesterday, I think you have the most updated link. But yesterday, I actually put in the components pictures because I realized I didn't do it, even though it's just a sheet and like one token. But I was like, oh, they're going to need to know what that means.
Yes. That helps so much. Just some sort of visual representation. It doesn't need to be a fancy rule book yet because it's beta, right? So it's just a rough draft, but I still needed some imagery. I need to understand what's what.
So yeah, blind playtesting, that's what that means. It's extremely crucial for us game designers. And if you want your game to be published, well, blind playtesting is a good way to start. And publishers love seeing that you've taken the work onto your hands as well.
Yeah.
So that is my Beyond segment. We will be launching here in the next few months. So no official launch date yet, but it's going to be very soon. We have
I'm definitely going to back it. So
I appreciate that. But that is the Beyond segment, and that was our segment for today. We're talking about trio of Allplay Games, Mountain Goats, Chomp, and Sequoia. If you like any of those games, or if you like anything that you heard today, go ahead and listen on and subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit that bell notification to be notified when we have another video out. If you want to follow our show, you can go ahead and do that at social media at Roll and Reflect and at Roll and Reflect Podcast. Special shout outs to Laura with the timestamps and the reflection question today.
Yes,
and
thank
to,
you.
of course, all of you high rollers for listening. We really appreciate you. And until next time, may your games be legendary
And your rolls be epic. See you guys.
See ya.